So this will be our last unit, guys. We are going to just do review for the final. You'll have it in 3.5 parts. So each part is worth 10 points, 5 for the notes. All you have to do is do what I do on them, and 5 for each worksheet. So today we're going to do review number 1. It's just a review of the first chapter you completed. So to get the 5 points for the notes, you need to write down everything I do, and then when you get the worksheet, you should use these notes because I tailored the worksheet off of them. What I did is I took the problems off the final and I just changed numbers and exponents. So the format will be very similar. It's just number 1 on your final might say 7x to the 6th minus 12x to the 6th. But other than that, they're going to be about the same. So make sure you have a writing utensil. There's some pencils up on my front table, some little golf pencils, everybody's favorite. And we'll take these notes and then you'll work on worksheet number 1, and both will be due and collected tomorrow. So we're going to do this more traditionally. You take notes, you do the work, and you turn it in the next day. So number 1, the very first chapter that we did was on polynomials. So number 1 is just basic addition and or subtraction of polynomials. And remember, you can only add or subtract if you have like terms. That means we have to have the same variable to the same power, which both of these are. So then you just subtract the 4 and the 11, and that's how many x to the 5ths you have. So just note, you do not change that exponent. 4 minus 11 is negative 7, and we're just done. So what I would like you to write on your notes is that when you're adding and subtracting, so 4 plus and minus, you just combine like terms. So that should be one everybody gets right on their final. Number 2, standard form. It's been a long time since that's been discussed. Standard form goes from, and again, you should write this down. I'm going to go nice and slow. Highest exponent down to the lowest exponent. So when it says to write a polynomial in standard form, keep in mind your final is going to be multiple choice. So you just have to recognize the one that's in standard form. So let's go find our highest exponent. What that means is this whole term needs to get written first. So it'd be negative 8g cubed will lead the polynomial. Then I go to my next highest exponent, which is a g squared, and it has a plus in front of it. Then I go to my next highest exponent, and that's actually 5g to the 1st, and it's positive because there's no sign out front. And then that constant term hangs along at the end. So that's called standard form. So you'll see 1 or 2 in standard form, and then it says to name it based on its degree. So what you do when you name it based on its degree is you go look at that highest power. If it's a 2, we call it quadratic. If the highest power is a 3, we call it cubic. Kind of think of like centimeters cubed when you're labeling something. That 3 kind of means cubing. So this is called a cubic polynomial. Again, if that had been to the 2nd degree, it'd be called a quadratic polynomial. So that one's done. So in number 3 and number 4, we're adding and subtracting. And again, that's just a game of like terms. The only thing, I'm going to get this out of the way here. The only thing you have to be careful of is with the subtraction. For the addition, you get to just add them up. You can just ignore the parentheses and just go find your like terms. So you have 4u cubes, and then you have plus 3 more u cubes. Well, that's going to give you 7 of those. Again, don't mess with those exponents. 4 of them and 3 of those gives you 7 of those. Don't put a u to the 6th there. That'd be very naughty. Next up, I've got 2u squareds. And there's no more. Has no friends. It just gets written down. And again, I'm writing these in standard form. So the next thing I'm going to put is my lonely u term here. There are 7 of those that can't be combined with anything. And then I've got my constants where I'm down 1 and down 5 more, which will make me down 6. So addition is easy. All you do is combine your like terms. Subtraction, remember, had a little glitch to it. We have to distribute that negative in. Basically, what that results in is we have to take the opposite of everything in that second set of parentheses. A negative and a negative will give you a positive. And so we're going to have to distribute the negative in. The first set we rewrite. So nothing's going on with this first set here. I'm just going to rewrite it. But for the second set, I've got minus, or the opposite of, a negative 7x to the fourth is going to give me a plus. So notice I end up taking the opposite of everything in the parentheses. That'll be a minus 3, and that'll be two negatives, making a positive 8x. So then what I need to do is go combine my like terms, and we should do it from the highest degree on down to the lowest. So I have minus 2x to the fourths. And I'm going up 7 of those. 2 in the whole increased by 7 will give me 5 of those. And sometimes I even like to cross them off. I know it makes a mess, but just to make sure you've got everything accounted for. Next, I don't have any x cubes or any x squareds, but I do have some x to the firsts. I have minus 7 of them right here. Make sure the sign goes with it. Plus 8 of them right here. Down 7, up 8 will put me up 1. And you can either write plus 1x, or when it's multiple choice, kind of know you won't see that 1 in there. It's implied. Also, I have my positive 5. Again, I've used those. So you kind of write it all out and then make a mess of it. And then I'm going down 3. So make sure you don't make that an 8. It'll be a positive 2. So for subtraction, go ahead and write yourself a note here. Addition is easy. Subtraction, you have to distribute. So when you get a worksheet, you're going to have 2 of each type on here to do. And you can just look at your notes for some help. You guys did really well in this chapter, so I'm thinking that this review won't be as important as the next one, but we're going to review it anyway. Number 5, we're doing some multiplication. So remember, multiplication is all about the distributive property. I distribute this in, I distribute this in, I distribute this in. But remember that when we multiply, and again, write this on your notes, when we multiply, what we need to do is that symbol, I'm going to make it a little neater. In higher levels of math, that symbol with a double arrow means implies. So when you multiply, that will imply that you need to add your exponents. So let's go take a look. I would suggest that every time you see, I know this is kind of small up here, but you have it in front of you, so that should help. I'll try to make the next review in a bigger size. Every time you see those, make sure you realize that when there's no exponent, it's really a 1, so you don't forget to add it on. Other than that, it's just a case of distributing it. 2 times n to the first times n squared will give you 2 n to the 1 plus 2, or n cubed. When you dump this in, 2 times 5 is a positive 10. N to the first makes n to the second. And then on the last dump, a positive and a negative will give you a minus 14. N, and you're done. It's just a case of the distributive property. Number 6 is also the distributive property. It's just got a lot more to it. So on number 6, there's 2 things you need to distribute. You need to distribute this, this, this. So you need to distribute the first term into everything in the second term. And then you're going to need to distribute this into everything. So again, on the side here, right, distribute. That's what the multiplication is all about. If I were to ask you, what's addition and subtraction of polynomials about, you would say combining like terms. If I were to ask you, what is multiplication of polynomials about, you should say the distributive property. So 2x to the first times 2x squared will give me 4x to the third. I should have left more space on here. I apologize for that. So there's 4x to the third. Then I've got a minus 2x to the 1 plus 1. And then I'm going to have a plus 2x times 4 is 8x. That's the first one being dumped into everything. Hippity-hoppity, distributive property. The second hop will be a minus 2x squared. and then negative times a negative will make a plus 1x, and then at the end, a negative times a positive will give you a minus 4. And then you'll need to combine the like terms, and we're going to do it from the highest power on down. So I like to go circle them. Is there anything that I can combine with 4x to the thirds? And there's no more in that string, so I just write it down. Then I like to cross it off. I make a big mess of things. Next, I'm down 2 x squareds, and then I'm dropping 2 more. Those don't cancel out. I'm already down 2, and then I fall 2 more. I'm going to be down 4 of those. Then I'm going to grab my x terms. I'm up 8. Going up 1 more will make it plus 9x. And then last but not least, I have this poor little minus 4 hanging on at the end, and I'm done. So those are 2 cases of the distributive property. And then we learned that when you do a 2 by 2, the distributive property still holds, but they gave an acronym to it, the order that you do them, but you're really still just doing hop this in, hop that in. They just call the first hop firsts, and then the second hop outsides, and then you do insides, and then you do lasts. So these 2 are both a case of foiling. This one, number 8, is what I call the sneaky foil, because you have to remember to expand this and write it as it times itself to see that you need to FOIL it. But in the middle of both of these, you should write the word FOIL, and let's go do that. The F stands for first, so we do 2x times 3x, which gives me 6x to the second. Outsides, I have a 2x times 5, which is going to give me a plus 10x. Insides, I'm going to have a minus 3x, and my lasts, a negative times a positive is a negative. And then I combine my like terms, and it gives me 6x squared plus 7x minus 5. You guys were really good at that, so I'm going a little faster now. Number 8, again, that's the sneaky foil, so put a little pair of eyeballs on that. This is one a lot of people get wrong on the final, because one of the answers that they're going to have there is 4x squared plus 9 for all the kids who think you just square each of these. You do not do that. You expand it, and then you foil it. Let's go do that. Firsts, 2x times 2x is 4x to the second. Bam! Getting a little punchy. 2x times 3 would be a minus 6x, and on the inside another minus 6x. And then last, a negative times a negative gives you a positive. And then we combine our like terms. These do not cancel in this case because they're both negatives. So I've got lots of negatives. I've got negative 12x plus 9, and it is done and fabulous. So then, the last thing we did in that first chapter was everybody's favorite thing. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bigger for you because it seems like it's getting, there we go. Glorious. I should have done this on the other one too, huh? Oh well. Live and learn, right? So the next thing we did was some factoring. So you're going to be asked to factor. I'd put a little star by this one. This is one of the most missed ones on the final from first semester. You're going to have this same question. The only difference is it's going to be a different area, but you're still going to be asked for the dimensions. So this is what you've got. You know that area is base times height, correct? And you know that has to equal x squared plus 2x minus 15. So what they're telling you is you got this rectangle. You do not know the base. You do not know the height. But you know when you multiply them, you get x squared plus 2x minus 15. Now let me put that on an easier scale, because if I told you that the area was 10, and I said, what are the dimensions of the rectangle? You would say, oh, it could be 2 by 5, or it could be 1 by 10. Really what you're doing is you're taking that 10 and splitting it into things that multiply to equal it, right? And that's exactly what you're being asked to do here. You need a base and a height so that when you multiply them, you get x squared plus 2x minus 15. This is really just a convoluted way of asking you to factor. So we can only lead in x and x, because remember, factoring is foiling. And the only way we can get those firsts is with an x and an x. Next, I know I need to have one plus and one minus. By the way, that's very helpful for a multiple choice test because even if that's all you know, at least don't pick the one that has two pluses or the one that has two minuses. If your last terms have to be negative, you need to have a positive and a negative. All right, and we did these so many times. You guys have been factoring until you're blue in the face, but remember, we need to multiply to equal a negative 15 and at the same time get a positive 2. So the sign of the middle goes with the larger number. So I need to have a plus 5 and a minus 3. And it is factored. Remember, you can always check this by foiling. Firsts, bam, outside and inside, bam, lasts, bam, it's great. So these last 5 are just a case of factoring. Let's go do that. Remember, the number one thing you ask yourself is, can I pull anything out? All right, so is there something hiding in here that I can factor out? And the answer is yes, and we've been doing that for a long time. They all have a 2 and an x in them. So I'm going to divide that out, and it's going to give me an x squared. When I take out a 2 out of this, I'll get a 2. When I take an x out, I'll have an x. And at the end, I'll have plus 4. Now be careful with this one because that's not all there is to do, because this one goes a little farther. 2 times 2 gives you a 4. Actually, this one doesn't go any farther. This one would be done. Simply because I can't find anything that multiplies to equal 4 and adds up to 2. But always look for that, just in case you can do more with it. But that one actually has nothing more I can do, so it'd be done, which is nice. For letter B, can I pull anything out? Uh-oh, I got a typo. Let's go fix that. This should be a C, sorry. Can I pull anything out of there? Nope. No C's in all of them. There's no number in all of them. So then I go start my unfoiling factor process. I have to lead in C's. I think of things that multiply to equal 36. I know I have to have the same sign because I'm ending in a positive. I have to either have a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. And we've been doing that a lot. We know they have to both be negatives because of our middle term. So what multiplies to equal 36? 6 times 6 does. That doesn't give me a 15. And you'll fart around with it for a while, and you'll stumble upon 12 and 3, either right away, or you'll have to just mess around on your calculator, I guess, a bit. But that is now factored, and it's done. Letter C. Can I pull anything out? Nope. So then I just try to break it apart. Remember, you can always check these by foiling, so I should actually do that on this one. I wanted to keep this under 20 minutes, and I'm at 18, so I'm doing pretty well here. My firsts have to be x and x. I have to end in a pair of numbers that multiply to equal 54. So that's where you kind of start saying, well, 2 times 27, that's obviously not going to give me a 3. And you'll sorry, I have to get a drink of water. I'm dying here. All right. This is the sound of me drinking water. Go, 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 go. Delicious. All right, so I eventually stumble upon 9 and 6. I make it a plus 9 and a minus 6. Why do you do that, Mrs. LaRude? Because I know I need one positive and one negative. I know the positives need to win out because of the middle term. So there's my pair of numbers that multiply to equal negative 54, bam, and add up to 3, bam, double bam. And the second to the last one, these are the easiest, but among the most missed because of the fact that they're a special kind of factoring. Remember what we call these. We call them a difference of perfect squares. And when that happens, it's nice and easy because there is no middle term, which means it was 0, which means you need to start with the sames, end with the sames, and have one of each sign. Why does that work? Because when you FOIL it, 5x times 5x is 25x squared. When you do your outsides and your insides, you get a pair of opposites. You get minus 10x plus 10x. That gives you 0. And then you have your minus 4. So when I FOIL it, it works. The beauty of factoring is it's always checkable by foiling it. I triple starred letter E because this is one that I would say probably the second most missed one on the final from first semester because it's that harder kind of factoring, and it's okay if you miss one, but remember when we can't pull anything out and we're struggling to figure out, well, I could lead in a 2 and a 6 or a 4 and a 3 or a 12 and a 1 and a 6 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and something's negative, and it gets all messy. Remember I gave you that quick, slick way to do these where we multiply the first times the last, and 12 times 6 is 72. Then we factor that. How can I get a 1 out of things that make 72? And 9 and 8 are my choice. But then remember the clicker to this. Go ahead and underline that. If you multiply by it here, you must divide by 12. I'm going to actually move that on over to this step. You have to divide by 12 right here. And then I'm going to scroll my screen a little bit here. And then, if you have your binders, there's a hot pink worksheet where we do these. We divide and then we reduce. 9/12 reduces to 3/4. 8/12 reduces to 2/3. Right? Divide each by 4. And then we slide. We called this the divide and slide method when we did it. And we get 4x minus 3 times 3x plus 2. Now remember, the beauty of these is they're checkable. Let's go try it. If I were to FOIL this sucker, FOIL. All right, here we go. Bam! 12x squared. Uh-oh, my smart board just went wackadoodle on me. So about that. 12x squared, score, plus 8x on the outside, minus 9x on the inside, and a minus 6 on the end. And this right here, it's kind of like I just went full circle. The goal was to factor it. This is the factored form, but in red there, I just checked it by foiling. So you can that's the beauty of taking a test on factoring. You'll know if you did it right, if you FOIL it and it works. So we are done. You're going to have about 25 minutes to work on the worksheet, and it'll be due tomorrow. There's about 2 of each problem on there, so make sure you use your time wisely. You should be able to finish it in class, and they'll be collected tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.